Let's start with access first. It's extremely important to ensure that the right users get access to Office 365. And identity and access management vendors have introduced some features of late in terms of how to provide adaptive access controls to Office 365 based on the users and groups and locations, which is really great. That helps administrators to enforce some controls. But these CASBs can actually take that one step further. The whole concept of securing access end up helping the administrators apply the zero trust principles from a very different vantage point, which is the user risk itself. And CASBs, especially CipherCloud CASB, has been some technology around this to ensure that we measure the user risk. And we get this because CASBs can follow the user and detect various activities that the users perform in Office 365. Things like the public shares that the users did, or any external collaborator invites, the sensitive data that got uploaded or downloaded, or any general anomalous behaviors by the user, right? So giving this threat intelligence-driven securing access will help the administrators to take that zero trust principle concepts to one more level and ensure that only right people get access to right resources in Office 365. So here is our platform. As an administrator, I can log into the portal, and we have the user risk management tool. Basically what it does is it follows every user and monitors the activities of every user in Office 365. And these are activities like the public shares that the user performed or violations that the user performed. Very, very unique, that is only possible by CASB vendors and especially CipherCloud. So here I have a bunch of users, but I want to highlight on two users here, Andrew and Bob. Based on the number of violations and the anomalous behaviors that the users performed, CipherCloud CASB categorizes them into high, medium, low-risk users. And based on the number of violations and anomalous activities that the user performed, in this case Bob, he seems to be a high-risk user. And administrators can author policies to tell, hey, anytime a high-risk user, Bob, tries to log into Office 365, just deny the connection. So let's see this in action. So I'm logging into Office 365 as Bob. Since my Office 365 is federated, I've been taken to the IDP where I'm trying to sign in. And immediately, since I'm signing in as Bob and I'm categorized as high-risk user, CASB can enforce that policy to deny access to Office 365 just because this user is rated high. And customers can actually add many parameters to this threat intelligence feed. You can add violations, you can add malware uploads, and multiple things. And CipherCloud's CASB allows security teams to enforce such kind of threat intelligence-driven access to Office 365. That's the first step in ensuring that your Office 365 is accessed only by the right people. The second step is once the user is within Office 365, using Office 365, performing various actions. We talked about this being a collaboration platform. Users can share things in Office 365 to external users. And one thing specifically within Teams is Teams actually allows you to do different types of channels, public channels and private channels. Usually in the private channels, typically enterprises wants to limit the private channels to be used only for internal users. So here I am in Microsoft's Teams. In the admin center, I can see that there are a lot of channels that are created within my company with two different privacy modes. Some are public and some are private. And one thing that of importance to me here is we have a channel internally called Project Megatron, which we typically use for any strategic and roadmap-driven conversations. Right? Naturally, this channel contains a lot of sensitive data, and especially around the intelligent properties relating to our company. Right? As you see here, it's very easy for me as a user or an administrator to actually go and add users. So here I have 2 users currently. Both of them are internal. But for me as a user, it's so easy for me to add a guest user to this channel. And in this case, I'm adding Chris, who is a guest user. And that's it. With just simple few clicks of a buttons, I have guest user, and now my entire internal channel, which is supposed to be private, is now exposed, and this user can see the content and download the content and do a lot of damage in that scenario. So as you have seen, CASBs has detected this action. Immediately, it based on the policy, removed the guest user. And this helps administrators automatically, based on just one simple policy, you can define to remove external users or your guest user from private channels. And this is just one example. You can customize the policy to have it as a combination of allow this to certain domains that I do business with, but anytime a user is shared to domains that are not part of my whitelist, you can block as well. So the policy engine allows you to author policies with multiple attributes. Right? So that's the second layer in terms of understanding the collaboration aspects of Office 365 and enforcing some security controls around that. Now let's talk about the data itself. As we talked about, Office 365 is being adopted by multiple industries, and different types of data gets into Office 365. We have seen in healthcare kind of companies, typically the data is around patient records and more around PHI. In the financial industries, files will have credit card numbers and SWIFT codes, etc., etc. And whereas in high tech, it's a lot about the source codes and the intellectual properties, design documents, etc. Right? And how do we make sure that we can detect these kinds of varieties of data that's being in Office 365 and help businesses to protect that data? Right? CipherCloud comes with a world-class DLP engine. Our DLP engine can detect various data identifiers. It comes with some pre-default data identifiers, around 1,000 plus data identifiers. And it also helps administrators to add regular expressions or keywords or exact data matches, etc., etc. Tons of ways in detecting sensitive data and whatever that sensitive data might be for that specific business or an organization, right? And with our DLP capability, platform will be able to detect sensitive data, downloads and uploads, and every time the sensitive data file is shared, etc. One use case I want to talk about today is, as you talked earlier, Matt, Office 365's promise is to have access to its application from any location, any device, right? So in the world of remote workforce where enterprises, users, and businesses are connecting to Office 365 from both managed and unmanaged devices, how do we make sure that we have some security controls around the place, especially when data is being downloaded from unmanaged devices, etc. Right? So what kind of security controls can security administrations implement when it comes to data itself? So here is one example. I want to now go into Office 365. This time I'll use OneDrive as an example. So here I have my OneDrive application. I have a set of documents here, out of which one is NPI numbers. This document contains a set of national provider identifiers, which is a sensitive information. And when a user tries to download that document, security officers can do a couple of things. One, in real time, as the download is happening, take the opportunity to coach your users, telling, hey, dear user, looks like you're trying to download this file, and it is violating our corporate policy. Do you still want to go ahead? Take that opportunity at that moment and coach the users. And definitely users might have genuine reasons of why they're downloading the data in this case. But as you coach the users, also, especially if it's a sensitive data, challenge the user for additional authentication related questions, right? This is an amazing best practice so that you're ensuring your data is going only into the right hands. So in this case, CASB and CipherCloud CASB can integrate with any identity provider of your choice that you have in place. The user is authenticated and taken to that specific IDP for MFA, right? And in this case, I'm going to answer the question, and only when the user answers the question correctly, the user will be able to download the file. So a couple of things: make sure you detect that the sensitive data is detected using the DLP. Take the opportunities to coach users and to enforce MFA in real time as the data gets downloaded. Right. So many times a question comes from our customer. Okay, we have these in place, and we allow the user to download the data. But what if that data is now copied into USB sticks, or that data is shared with others over emails? How can we get visibility and have some kind of control on the data itself? Right. That's a very, very important aspect. And CipherCloud CASB has built some technology around this to ensure that last mile protection is enforced. So as you see here on this document, although the document got downloaded, it got encrypted with our unique IRM technology. And as you see, the extension is with .cc secure. This ensures that even though the file is downloaded, the data is encrypted, the file is encrypted all the time wherever the data lives. And when the user tries to open it, user is challenged to authenticate, and authorization policies needs to be set in place to make sure that the user is opening, right users open the file, right? And again, this is all policy driven. Administrators can author policies to decide who should open the file, who should not open the file. One example is, imagine an employee downloaded this file, but he left the organization, right? So you can apply policies to tell, hey, every time if an employee leaves the organization, he or she can never open this file. So very policy driven, last mile protection for sensitive data leaks or downloads to any unmanaged devices also. Right? So that's the third level, where you can combine the technologies of DLP, contextual awareness, and the IRM to ensure that your files are always safe and secure. The fourth use case which I want to talk, which is also very relevant, is about the privileged user activities. In any SaaS applications, users have multiple roles, especially users with admin roles have a lot of power, right? Having an insight into the user activities performed by the privileged users is of extremely importance. We have heard about many cases where privileged users mistakes have cost businesses a lot. So that's another area where CipherCloud CASB can help security administrators to gain full visibility into the activities performed by administrators who have privileged rights, right? So let's see some few things in action. So here is the CipherCloud CASB platform. Office 365 being such an important cloud, we've actually built a dedicated dashboard to give full visibility into various activities the Office 365 users perform. And one such tab is dedicated for admin activities. So as you can see here, we help you detect and identify various user activities, for example, disabling any transport rules or removing a user from distributor list, or even things like adding a member to a role. This is a very dangerous operation. Escalating user permissions into higher roles can lead the new user to do a lot of damage. So getting that visibility into that kind of operation is extremely important for businesses. And things like changing the user licenses and stuff like those. So with these are just 4 examples of how enterprises can adopt the layered security at every level: access, sharing controls, data, and the admin privileged user activities. We're happy to talk more. We're happy to show a demo of any business-specific use cases. Feel free to reach out to us.